Hello, my name is William Turnbull, and today the goal of this presentation is to talk about Socrates and his life and his contributions to Western civilization. So let's get started. Just some general information about him. He was born in 407 BC in Athens, Greece. Little is known about his life, but what we do know comes from the writings of his students, Plato and Xenophon, as well as the plays of Aristophanes. According to Joshua Mark of Ancient Greek History Encyclopedia, most of our knowledge came from Plato. These writings were not always completely about him, so it's hard to trust the words of these people, but most of what we do know may not be entirely accurate, but it's what we have. Socrates is known for his changing of Greek philosophical thought from the contemplation of the origin of the universe to the observation of human life and how it reacts to its problems. What he is most known for is his Socratic method, which we'll get into a little bit later. Scholars have noted that the impact of Socrates on the development of Western culture and philosophy cannot be overstated, and some have even suggested that his teachings influenced the development of Christianity. So just a little bit on his early life. Socrates was the son of Sophroniscus, an Athenian stonemason and sculptor, and his mother was a midwife. It is believed Socrates worked as a mason for many years before he devoted his life to philosophy. Due to the fact that he didn't come from a noble family, it's believed that he had just a basic Greek education coupled with lessons from his father in his early years. Historians have argued over how Socrates supported himself as a philosopher. Xenophon and Aristophanes say in their writings Socrates was paid for his teachings, whereas Plato thinks he denied accepting money for his teachings. It's also believed he took over the family profession of stonemasonry from his father. Socrates also married a young woman whom he had 3 kids with, or 3 sons, I should say. According to Plato's writing, Athenian law required all able-bodied males to serve as soldiers, so because of that, Socrates served in the armed infantry for a short time. So what he's known for is his philosophy. Socrates was one of the greatest philosophers in Western civilization, and he set the groundwork for future philosophers to come. He was a strong believer that philosophy should have practical results that affect society for the greater good. He believed human choice was motivated by their desire for happiness rather than anything else. People make decisions on what's going to make them or their counterparts happy. He said that in order to have vast knowledge, one must first have knowledge of who you are as a person. The more a person knows about themselves and the world around them, the better their ability to reason and make choices that will bring real happiness to people and themselves. He related this to politics, stating that the best form of government is neither a tyranny nor a democracy. It was his belief that democracy was too weak of a governmental system. Instead, it comes at a steady middle where government works best when ruled by the individuals who have the best understanding about themselves and the world around them so they can make those important decisions. And then the thing he's most known for is his Socratic method. The Socratic method is one of the oldest and most influential styles of teaching, which relies on causing their students to learn by asking questions rather than giving them the answers. So today you can find evidence of the Socratic method in the formation of hypotheses in the scientific method. In addition, most educators use this form of teaching every day without even realizing that Socrates was the one that came up with this kind of approach to education. According to Elizabeth Garrett of the University of Chicago Law School, Socrates engaged in questioning of his students in an unending search for truth. He sought to get to the foundations of his students and colleagues' views by asking continual questions until a contradiction was exposed, thus proving the fallacy of the initial assumption. So just to look at this kind of graph of what the Socratic method is, it has these 3 main pillars. 1, it offers questions in place of answers. 2, there is never one correct answer unless all other solutions have been ruled out. And 3, it refuses to give students the answers directly. They have to come through it, or come to it through questions. So his later years in death, he was put on trial in Athens for 2 charges. 1, corrupting the youth of the city-state, and 2, enmity against the pantheon of Athens. So specifically, the first trial cited two violations, the trial cited two violations of the law. Number one, failing to acknowledge the gods that the city acknowledges, and two, introducing new deities. What caused this trial to happen was his first group of students led an anti-democratic campaign against Athens. Socrates was told to stop and the group was dissolved. However, he again resumed his teachings, and it led to another group of followers who had another anti-democratic protest, and that's when he was convicted. He was convicted by a vote of 280 to 221. The defiant tone of his defense contributed to the verdict, and he made things worse during the decision of his punishment. Athenian law allowed a convicted citizen to propose an alternate punishment to the one proposed by, and the jury would decide. Instead of proposing to be exiled like many thought he would, he suggested he be honored by the city for his contribution to their enlightenment and be paid for his services. So this kind of served as a final defiant jab to the Athenian government. So the jury ended up sentencing him to death by drinking a mixture of poison hemlock. When the execution rolled around, his friends offered to bribe the guards and rescue him so he could flee into exile, but he declined, stating that he wasn't afraid of death, one, and two, he felt like he would be no better off in exile than he would be dead. And finally, he said that he was still a loyal citizen of Athens, willing to abide by its laws, even the ones that condemned him to death. So at his execution, Socrates drank the hemlock mixture without any hesitation. So just to conclude, a couple important points. Socrates was the greatest philosopher of his time. He changed the world around him with his challenging new thoughts and ideas on politics and ethics, and he laid the groundwork for future philosophers to come. As one of the greatest teachers in Athens history, he came up with the Socratic method, which again is essentially just learning by asking questions and provoking students to ask questions about what they are learning. This method is still used in education every day, whether people realize it or not. Finally, he challenged the prior political thoughts of democracy, which ultimately led to his demise, but he also challenged the thought of God and believed there was another spiritual being that some say helped lead to Christianity. That's all I have. Thanks for listening. Does anybody have any questions? Cool, thank you.